to the FIT4Privacy podcast with Punit Bhatia. This is the podcast for those who care about their privacy. Here, your host, Punit Bhatia, has conversations with industry leaders about their perspectives, ideas, and opinions relating to privacy, data protection, and related matters. Be aware that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are not legal advice. Let us get started.
As a privacy professional, it is always challenging. How do you explain to a business professional? Because business people are always keen on business dimension, while privacy, we have some other things and they look at it as a challenge. Then there's also the perspective of how do you tell them about data breaches and help them prepare for data breaches. And most importantly, it is always a challenge because business people look at it privacy as a project while privacy is a journey. Now, if you have to do these things, that is, explain them privacy as a journey, you need to take care of the maturity models. So, how do we as privacy professionals take care of these things? That is, explaining data breach, helping them understand privacy from a business perspective, and also understanding the maturity models without using the jargon and the technical language on privacy. This is something we will discuss with my special friend and privacy colleague, Tsvetina Lungarova. She's from Bulgaria and has a lot of knowledge in this field. So let's go and have a conversation with her. So here we are with Tsvetina Lungarova. Welcome, Ina. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Punit. I'm super happy to be here and thanks very much for your invitation.
Thanks for being with us. And maybe let's start or break the ice with a simple question. When you think about GDPR, what's the one word that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I was expecting that. Yeah, I've watched the other episodes, so yeah. I would say consistency. Uh,
Consistency.
yeah, definitely.
And what's on your mind when you say consistency?
When you have to create the perfect symmetry
Mhm.
between what you are telling people that you're doing and what you are actually doing at this level, and then within everything in your plate, I would say, you need symmetry, and you need to have it consistent. You cannot just put something into privacy notice while your records of processing activities say something else, for example.
Mhm.
So whenever you go for it, it's like to play a Sudoku game. It should
Mhm.
be the same result everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. And tell us something about your journey. How come you enter into or come into the privacy world? Because with your background, from what I understand, you've been a legal professional. You've also been in facilities management, and then also fair bit in IT. So you have the right elements. But how did you end up, or how did you get into the field of privacy?
Yeah, I get this question very often because what I've seen so far is that usually people in our field are coming from usually a legal background or IT background. In my case, it's more kind of an interdisciplinary approach, let's say. And it was a long journey because when I started my career path, I just wanted to be an administrative manager. So to run an administration of a company, to make it sustainable in the way it exists, not the business it's doing. So despite of the business of the company, it should be held like a person. It should has its processing going properly. And that's why I was focused in learning the different aspects of this, let's say, creature, if a business is a creature, a company.
Hmm.
And for that reason, I've spent some time into different domains. I've been dedicated to administration. I've been dedicated also to finance, also marketing, also projects, facility management, different, really different aspects, all of it, in order to understand how it works. So back in 2016, I was in the marketing part of that journey. and I was working for an IT company providing services for healthcare industry. So it was quite complicated because the services they were providing, also the products they were developing back then, it was all related to processing a lot of personal data, sensitive data, and they wanted to grow and asked me to put in place a plan how we are going to develop our relationships and how we are going to expand our business within Europe and not only. So back then I didn't know about the restraints that we had related to data transfers. And we were having lunch with my manager, and I was like, well, that's super easy. We just go and find some partners. We have all the infrastructure set up here in Bulgaria, so it's super easy. We now have to just reuse it number of times in different countries. And he was like, no, 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 it's not that easy. You need to have an infrastructure everywhere you want to do business with that field, within that field, because you cannot actually transfer the data. And I was shocked. I was super shocked that someone cares about it and there is a rule forbidding us to do that. I was super shocked to learn that. So this is basically how I get to know about personal data, about that there is regulations in place, what's the reasoning behind that, etc. And it was when you have when you get lemons, you have to make yourself lemonade. So as a marketing person, I felt super restrained by that, and this was right the time they actually adopted GDPR, and they said that it's going to come into force in 2 years. So I was super happy to see it as an enabler because it was solving my problem at that moment, and that was super important for me. And that's why I said, okay, look, this is going to be our competitive advantage because many people, many companies, as I didn't know that so far, may be in the same position, or they may not have, let's say, free resources to invest into that at this moment. So I was super interested of getting this company on the top of that in a way that in 2018 it will be actually right straight to the point and compliant, and it will build solution because they were building solutions back then. They will be built with having this in mind. So it's been privacy engineering, privacy by design at that very moment without actually I realized that this was my pure instinct about it. That's why I believe that it's the right way to go. And although it has bad reputation amongst business, because let's be honest, when talking about GDPR to business people, they're like, oh, it's thousands of papers, of documents and stuff. It's something I don't like, but it is actually an enabler. And whenever I tell this story to someone from business background, they tend to change their perspective on that. So that's why I'm super happy to share it here as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think when we become a consultant, because for those of us who started in 2015, 2016, just like you and me, we have had the experience of working in different engagements, different projects, and that gives us the advantage. And just like you have facilities, IT, and legal, when you're multidisciplinary, you it makes it easier for you to understand GDPR and apply GDPR, apply privacy in different ways, in different elements. And that's why when I was talking to you the other day, you were talking about privacy maturity models. I mean, I'm also a great fan of privacy maturity models because for companies that have implemented GDPR, it's time to measure the maturity and take it to the next level and also have an aspiration plan for a few years. How do they improve and how do they get more mature on a ongoing basis? Because as we say, I'm sure you also say as a consultant saying privacy is a journey, it's not a project. So if it's not a project, you need to continually improve it, continually measure and monitor. So I like to understand a little bit more in detail. So what's your view and how do you go about this privacy maturity models when you're working with your clients?
Yeah, I'm super happy that you're bringing up this topic here because as we already discussed that recently with you, it's super helpful. And it is, at least in my practice so far, it's been super helpful also from the first stage, first contact that I got with clients, because it is a good way, nice way, if you systemize it and show it properly and explain it properly, to actually educate people into that domain briefly, to the level that they could understand what service do you offer in general, because they are not coming from our background. They're not people who know our perspectives. They just know, oh, we need to comply with GDPR. There is a set of rules, and we have to look for someone to help us do that. But they don't actually know what kind of offer they are going to get. Sometimes they still see it as a project, and we have to discuss about that. I have to educate them. It's not a project. It's a program. So maturity model. If you have a good, nice summary of it, good example, it helps in the first conversation with the client to explain them what could be in place from zero, let's say, to maintain. And then you could use this as a navigation and ask them, okay, where do you want to be in, like, next 1 month, 3 months, or a year, or 3 years? How much is enough for you? Because to be honest, it depends on their risk appetite. It's not that anyone is just aiming at perfect 100% compliance at any single moment. But we have to admit that. So you show them a map of what is zero and what is hero, let's say, in that field, and you ask them, where do you want to get? And then based on that, you could actually align the expectations and be able to make proper suggestion, proper offer to that customer. And
Yeah.
also after that, it helps a lot during the life cycle to actually set up a plan in place, to prioritize, to make the gap analysis, to perform it on it, and actually compare if you have delivered what is expected, what you have agreed, and what you have offered. So I use it to actually establish good management of my relationship with customers, not only to put in place for them for their own purposes. It helps me as a consultant a lot.
Absolutely, it does. I think it reminds me of an example. Last year, we were talking with a client, or at that time, somebody who wanted to become a client, and he was asking me, Punit, how long it'll take us to become GDPR compliant? I said, forever. Forever. And he said, really? I said, yes, really, because you'll never be compliant. The way it works is you set up, we do a gap analysis, you do a little bit, then we take care of those actions. And by that time, your business has changed. So we are back a little bit back from where we start or where we were. So you start again with another gap analysis and another time, because your business keeps changing, your compliance needs also keep changing. So you make your privacy notice or statement. We think it's final. 6 months later, business wants to do a new project, new product, and for that we have to change the privacy notice again. So it is a never-ending process. So he was like, "So how much it will cost me forever?" And I was like, anywhere between 25,000 to 50 million based on where you are. And he said, oh, 50 million, we don't have that. And I said, I also said 25,000. So you'll be more on the lower side than on the higher side. So if I look at it, we spent maybe 200 to 250,000 with them, but we put in exactly what you're saying. We said you are at a zero or a -1, and you have a level of 5. Where do you want to be? And when I explained them, they were like, we don't want to be at level 5 because that's not our aspiration. We don't want to be. So the aspiration was somewhere around 3.5 or 4, and we are gradually building towards that. And I think we are at a score of around 2, if I last remember. So yes, as a consultant for you and me, this is one thing that allows us to have a conversation, because they come up with a fixed binary mindset to do
Yeah.
GDPR compliance, how much it cost, how many weeks or months. That's it. What they
Yeah,
don't realize is, yeah, go ahead.
They see it like a checkbox. Ah, now
Yeah.
we are not. If we are now, yes, no.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
wish it was yes, no, zero, one, but it's always it depends, because sometimes they ask a question and then they say, last time you said this time you're saying this, and I say it's a contextual situation, based on the context, based on the need, based on the demand, we change, and we have to advise you in that function, because if you are processing personal data for 5 people, then the answer will be different. If it's 5,000, then it will be different. And also, sending an email to 5 people about reminding something, that's different, but selling something, that's very, very, very different. So it's not, you think it's an email and a question to privacy, but for us it's what do you do in the email, or what do you communicate. So it's very interesting. In fact, there's another topic that is very interesting when we talk to clients apart from maturity, and I like to touch base on that. That is data breaches. You know,
Oh,
uh, typically when I meet clients, they will say, so we put a process, we are fine. And I would say, no. Or sometimes they will say, we didn't have a data breach for last 5 years. Then I give them the stats, the industry standards, then I say, it usually happens in, I think, 3.6 seconds or something like that, 3 or 4 seconds for a company. And I tell them it's a question of when you will have it. It's not a question if you will have it. You will have it. The only question is when you will have it. And then again, it's not a process, it's a continuous thing. But what has been your experience? Because data breaches is a heavy topic. And I know, having spoken to you many a times, that you're passionate about it. What has been your experience in data breaches?
yeah, that's why I'm smiling since you just mentioned it. I love it, and there is one very simple reason for loving it. When you have the problem at your table, this is when you are fully dedicated to it. This is when you trust it happening. This is when you actually have your full attention on it. And this is, let's say, the time when I take some, how to say that, I'm on a vacation, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
from explaining to people that privacy matters, that it's
Mm-hmm.
important, that they have to comply because they have to comply. This is when everyone is super interested in what will happen next, what they have to do. This is when they all get dedicated to it. This is when they
Mm-hmm.
all know it's important. So it can be absolutely hands on the topic itself. And that's why I really enjoy that part of my work. Of course, it's something bad to happen to a company, but as you just mentioned, it's uh, inevitable. It's just a matter of time when it's going to happen, not about is it going to happen. It will. So I really like the concentration, the focus they have on it, the discipline that I see at that time. I really like how people get organized and how they are willing to not let it happen again. Because whenever we are doing our privacy trainings, explaining to them that hypothetically it might happen that you are in a situation of a data breach, having the 72-hour, assessing everything, etc., 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 they don't feel they owe this problem. They own this problem, and during data breach, this changes tremendously. So this is why I love it. I'm super happy to see the practical aspect of what we have done, of what we have built, where it cracked, why, what we can do better, and to see all this energy concentrated and be given from anyone in the process. So yeah, I really do love that intense moment.
What I really enjoy is, in data breaches, when somebody says we are data breach ready. So I tell them, let's do a simulation, or what we call a tabletop exercise. So we will, between a core group of people, we will plan a breach or breach like situation, and we will not tell anyone, and we will see what happens in the company. It's same like the phishing emails which we get on a regular basis, and then we say, hey, let's try it. And when we try it, when we do it, more often than not, what will happen is there will be new surprises. Like, most people don't know there's a process. Most people don't understand this is a breach. Most people don't know what to do in a situation. It's always fascinating. First, the phase of saying it's not important, then saying let's put a process, and then saying it's done. And then finally, when you test it out, you realize that it's important. And I've done quite a few of these exercises, and it's always fascinating how much you learn or how much the organization learns from a simulated incident or simulated breach, and how much the management learns about the readiness aspect of the organization.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you say. And speaking about simulations, I would also say that we recently had a simulation with one of my clients. And the most interesting aspect of our findings was that actually they were not prepared to take decisions.
Mm-hmm.
The owners of risks, they didn't actually realize what does it mean to be an owner of such a risk, what types of decision they will have to make in a certain situation. So actually, it turned out that in terms of process, it was pretty good setting, but at the same time, we need to work with those people to bring the topic closer to them and to show them better what the translation of those things in the boxes mean for them in actual situation. So it was super, super
Absolutely.
interesting.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I also realize is typically when we are done with the project or say the consultancy engagement, they will say, okay, it's done. And you usually tell them that if you need DPO as a service, privacy as a service, fractional privacy officer, whatever you need, essentially saying we, that is, whether it's you or me or whosoever it is, we tell them that, hey, we are available. And if you want to subscribe to this as a service, you need to keep us on your say retainer, or a fixed number of hours a month or a week. And typically the answer is no. I think we are done, we are good. And then few months later something goes wrong, and then they call us, and then usually it takes much more time because there has been some gap. We don't know the situation, and we have not maintained some of the artifacts or documents which we would normally have done as privacy as a service, or like the EU representative or DPO as a service. And then the effort to recover back and to advise and to understand what do they need is far more than it would have been when it's on a continuous basis and you have something. Because not every company needs privacy professional in house, but every company does need, just like you have an accountant and you go to him on a quarterly, or her on a quarterly basis and submit your invoices. That's the same thing with privacy. You need to keep someone on your say list of experts to consult and to keep them on an ongoing basis in touch with what's happening in your company. But that's again something which goes into my other question, which I wanted to ask is, businesses are busy with their business, that's why they exist. And then comes privacy on top, and then come people like us who have to explain privacy. And it's not easy, because if we start talking about the rights, the data breaches and everything, they don't care. And if we scare them with the fines and all, that doesn't help either. So the truth is somewhere in the middle, wherein you talk about the business benefits, you talk about privacy in their language, and help them understand the importance, the relevance of privacy and the related actions. But in your experience, when you've been working with clients, how and what have been your some of the stories, or the philosophy with which you are talking to them and explaining privacy in a business understandable language, if I may say?
Yeah, I see your point, and yeah, that's a very, very important topic, I believe, because if we don't make this bridge, let's say, between the way they talk and the way we talk, we cannot do much together. So I really believe that it's our job to bring them to the topic, not just to say, well, I'm the expert, they should be listening to what I say and that's it. We should work really a lot on that, making them understand our grounds. So in that field, I would say, because I have a background as economist, and I think that using their usual tools, their usual business tools, like the maturity model, as I mentioned in the beginning, like Racy Matrix, tools like that, instruments that they know, that they apply in their daily practice in business. This is the first step, to talk their way, not to give them the legal language. Oh, you should do that, you should do that. It's not the way they understand. If you put in place some of the tools that they are usually using, and try to translate through those tools to them, they feel more confident. They really understand what you're telling them. They feel more comfortable. They know the language that you're using at this moment, and they feel that there is a bridge between them and you, because usually they would tend to think that you're coming from another planet. So it's really, at least so far, it has helped me a lot to do that. The second thing is to make it more entertaining, let's say, in the conversation itself, not to be fixed on the fact that, oh, they brought me as a consultant, I should be super serious, looking strong, etc. No, you should be super friendly and actually break ties with those people. I tend to introduce some privacy mascots, let's say.
Mhm.
For example, I'm telling them about the chameleon, representing actually what personal data is, the definition, because it's contextual. And the fact that this animal changes its color based on context, it's something that they could easily remember. And this is how they connect better to the topic. So we should put a lot of effort on it to translate what we have to tell them, not just to demand them to listen to us and to understand us themselves. And finally, the third thing that I do is to wear a funny scarf with cats, or whatever kind of animals, foxes, whatever you could think of. But it really does help, because people tend to get more relaxed. The topic itself seems super hard to understand and to get. And when you see someone that is approaching you in a more funny way, in a more casual way, then it really helps them to get their mindset ready to get new information, and that it will be understandable to them. So
Mhm.
these are my tricks, but hopefully they really help.
No, of course they help, and I think that reminds me of an example. I was talking to a DPO in the UK, and she was telling me that she dresses up as a witch. So, but on the other side, she always is very friendly. So on one hand she looks like a witch, but I mean dresses up like a witch, not looks like a witch. And the other hand, she's so polite and helpful. So she says she wants to create an image with people. Ah, you should talk to that witch when the data protection matters come in. And since she's friendly, it also helps. But that was a little bit, in my view, stretching it a bit too far, because you're also involving a little bit too much of yourself in the game. While you do need to attract attention, but daily dressing up as a witch, that I don't know if that's as far as that I want to go. But there's no easy answer. Let me ask you some uh, quick questions. So, if you were to start in an organization in privacy field as a consultant, what were the first three things you will do?
Oh, that's an interesting one.
Indeed.
Yeah. So first thing will be to understand what their business is,
Hmm.
to study their industry, and I've done that so far numerous times. I really need to understand their context,
Hmm.
to see what they aim at, because this is going to define their mindset and
Mm-hmm.
their risk appetite in terms of compliance, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely the understanding the industries is the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing would be to see what is their culture. Uh, I would try to get this from different people into informal conversations, let's say, but to see what the culture is, because this would actually show me how the change process will go with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know that becoming compliant or going towards compliance, it's actually a change process.
Mm-hmm.
So we know the 5 stages of grief, and it's the same goes with change process. So it would be super important what the culture is, to see how much time they are willing to spend between the different stages: denial, negotiation, etc. And the third thing, yeah, that's going to be to actually get the insights from the seniors. What would be actually their willingness to go for it, to
Mm-hmm.
see what their attitude is, what is their level of understanding, because they will have to do the sponsorship. If they don't, if they don't believe in it, if they don't go with high ambitions, let's say, uh, this should be considered in the beginning when designing whatever you go for.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, So context, culture, and commitment. That's what you focus on. The
Definitely, well
context of
said.
the organization, the culture of the organization, and the commitment of senior management.
Yeah.
It's very, very essential, because sometimes someone asked me, I was on a podcast, as a guest somewhere, and they asked me, where would you start with the privacy implementation? I said, I will start at the top, because if at the top the tone of senior management is right, and they are supportive, and they are starting to understand, then it makes sense. And if it doesn't start there, it doesn't start. And because if you have to establish a culture of privacy, you start at the top, nowhere else. So that commitment of senior management is very important. Let me ask you another question. Typically, when we go to companies, especially those who are not big ones, of course, there are companies wherein there are, like I worked in one, there were 55 privacy lawyers, and we were about 55 or 60 non-lawyer privacy people. So when we had to do an offsite, it was a huge challenge, because who do you invite, who do you not? And assembling, say, 100 people was also not easy across the world, when you have to guide them and get them. But the challenge was, what I've seen is, while that's another extreme wherein you can manage, you have different sets of challenges, but the other side is when they don't have a privacy department, completely opposite. And they do have a security department, and they say, but we have a security department, why do we need a privacy person? How do you help them understand the difference between security and privacy?
Yeah, I see your point, and it's super valid. I see that pretty often. Most of the companies I work with are internationals, so they are not at that level.
Oh, good.
But yeah, but related to my academic research, because I'm currently doing an academic research on how GDPR affects business processes in smalls and mediums.
Mm-hmm.
And in particular in my country, but it's pretty much the same, because if you're looking at a startup, it's pretty
Mm-hmm.
much two people in a garage.
Mm-hmm.
So it has its let's say standard aspects, but um, because of it, I have the opportunity to see lots of them and how they respond to that. So the way I do it is that I tell them that security, the word itself, if you go to understand the semantics of the word, there are different aspects of security, different ways of security. There could be the cyber security within digital environment. There could be the physical security of your body, let's say. At the same time, there is your legal security, in terms of legislation. So there are different aspects of security. Security does not mean just one thing, which is the most common recently. And that's why I try to make them just step aside and see the bigger picture this way. And it works, I would say. It works. When you explain them what legal security means, they tend to realize what is behind, because they know there are rules, but they don't look at them as a protection for themselves. They don't see the rules as a protective mechanism. They see it as mostly a requirement for them how to behave. At the same time, I tell them, okay, but when you're driving, when you're on the road, you're protected by others following the same rules. So it's kind of protection for you. And this is how they get to understand that. And at least this is how I start this conversation. With everyone, it goes different way because their background would be different, etc. But at least the conversation starts from this.
Interesting. And now, based on this conversation, if somebody wants to ask, can you describe in short what do you do so that they can contact you? What would you tell them?
Yeah, sure. Of course, I could explain them in an understandable language. What is it all about? To help them see where do they fit, what their ambitions are, to realize it, to understand what they want to get out of it, to bring them information, relevant information about the risks they are willing to take, so that they get informed decisions. And of course, to help them with all the different aspects of it, since I think my expertise so far and my practice has put me into different roles and positions, so that I've seen it from all the angles. So yeah, that's what I do.
And where do they reach out to you? What's the best way to contact you?
Yeah, I think that would be LinkedIn. I'm using it a lot. I think this network is super useful for people like us. It's been useful to me to connect with other professionals like you and to learn from them. And it helps me every day. At the same time, it helps me a lot to be discoverable by people who are looking for people like me in order to do business. So I think LinkedIn would be the best opportunity.
That's true. LinkedIn is where we all are very active these days. And sometimes I wonder how many times I go there in a day. But then there are days when I don't go there because I'm busy. But yes, LinkedIn is the place to be. And with that, I have to say, I don't even understand how the time flew by. But thank you so much for your time, Ina. And it was wonderful to have you.
Thank you so much, Punit, for the invitation. Once again, I'm really happy to be here with you, as I've listened to people that I admire from this same podcast. So I'm really happy to participate. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
FIT4Privacy helps you to create a culture of privacy and manage risks by creating, defining, and implementing a privacy strategy that includes delivering scenario-based training for your staff. We also help those who are looking to get certified in CIPPE, CIPM, and CIPT through on-demand courses that help you prepare and practice for certification exam. Want to know more? Visit www.fit4privacy.com. That's www.fit4privacy.com. Thanks for listening. If you liked the show, feel free to share it with a friend and write a review. If you have already done so, thank you so much. And if you did not like the show, don't bother and forget about it. Take care and stay safe. Until next time, goodbye. If you have questions or suggestions, feel free to drop an email at hello@fit4privacy.com. That's hello@FIT4privacy.com.